Stanley Kubrich, in a way, 2001 is sort of, in many ways, my first sort of conscious artistic model. I mean, it's the first, I can remember, you know, my godmother took me to see Mahalia Jackson, who came to Tupelo, Mississippi when I was like 4 or 5. That's probably the earliest sense I have, and maybe seeing James Brown or somebody who was doing something artistic, but that was music for us, and so music's so naturalized. But when I saw 2001, it definitely had a profound impact on me because I can't quote unquote say I liked it. I was arrested by it. You know what I mean? I was sort of mesmerized by it. I used to say sometimes a little buried alive by it. But and in that sense, you know, it's at the end of the day like the best model of what art could do. You know, it's just it holds you there. You don't know why you're being held there, but you can't get up and leave. Well, I just did B camera on that. I mean, that to me, I did because I was hoping for an opportunity to talk to Kubrick, which I had but never took. And when he died unexpectedly, I was very, you know, it depressed me a little bit because I spent a lot of time thinking about why I never spoke to him in a year and a half. Because there were many instances where he called on the phone while we were shooting, and then it was like, hey, Stanley wants to say hey, and I'd be like, So I ended up thinking a lot about it afterwards. Why did you always refuse the calls? And I think it's just because he had such a profound impact on me. I didn't want to have like a, you know, casual phone call. I wanted to actually have a real conversation. And when he died unexpectedly, it never happened. And the sense that in the music, it's a space where we fully actualized our sort of expressive intentions, capacities, desires, let's say. And cinema is a space in which, to a certain degree, that hasn't been completely true. Cinema as a form, you know, we know has always been very capital intensive. It's required a lot of money to do it. So as a consequence, if you look at the output of Black people in a very young art form, still just barely 100 years old, unlike the music where we come to our present day circumstances with a 1,000-year-old background in musical production, in cinema you don't have that. So what you're really talking about is taking aesthetics or values of beauty or values of correctness or truth or these kinds of things, and you're talking about transposing them from one space, music in this instance, to this other space, cinema. It's a bit of a theoretical leap that you could take what the implications of music and apply it to cinema, but I think it's something that people to a certain degree have always sort of attempted to do. So there's this weird way in which music and cinema had this complicated, you know, competing idea of what actually was going to define what the real was, what the contemporary looked like, how people should act, how people should behave, these kinds of things. So there's a kind of, I almost feel like, unspoken way in which Black music, popular music, and cinema, they've sort of naturally gravitated towards one another, but they were all sort of kept apart, you know? And it has a lot to do with the political implications of what it means to make an image. Nobody can control what's happening. Like, even the most powerful entities in the world can't control what's happening. Arab Spring, nobody has any control of that, that's just happening. But what they can control is spin. They can control how we understand what's happening, how we frame it. Showing people new ways of how you can be in the world. It's not just the music and it sounds good. It's like, it showed people you didn't have to stand straight. You could, you know, all these kinds of things are completely bound up with Black music. And then on the other hand, you have cinema, which to a certain degree, particularly in the first 50 years of cinema, so much like I think the power of Hollywood cinema is how it, in a sense, renders whiteness even. Like our idea of what a beauty is rendered in Hollywood films. I think people are always shocked. They get to America and they see people don't look like that. They're not like all tall blonde women or all Cary Grant or something like that. So you have these two competing expressive modalities that are trying to define what the world is. I think Stephen Quinn is a very, very interesting artist, first of all, above and beyond his filmic output. Some of his films I think are really incredible. I like his first feature film. I think is an amazing feature film. It doesn't have anything to do with Black people at all. I mean, I actually think it has everything to do with Black people's circumstances. You make a film about a guy who's in a prison most of his adult life. That's Black people's circumstances, but there are no Black figures in it. Or maybe there's a guard or two, maybe here, there, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not such a fan of 12 Years a Slave at all. I'm not, I think, I've even gone on record to say I think it's a bit of an abomination even, but I think the whole question again has to do with, first of all, I'm not trying to collapse all black people have to make one kind of film. It's not like that. If you, again, to take the model of black music, most people can immediately identify if something is black music or not. Even when a white person does it, they can say, that's black music, right? I don't think if you're a black filmmaker and you make a film with or without black people, that makes it black cinema. And just like if a black person puts a horn to the mouth, that don't make it jazz, it just means it's a black person blowing in a horn. So the black cinema thing, by the same token to me, has to be, even in this sort of nascent form, has to be bound up with some more complicated relationship to like the social reality of black people, but also the aesthetic way in which that social reality gets rendered, it seems to me.